Making headlines tonight, a positive outlook about the growth and export potential of the island's manufacturing sector. The major stakeholders in local transport sign a landmark agreement. Barbados secures major funding to help upgrade the Bridgetown sewage treatment plant, among other things. And in sports, the West Indies, well, they're heading back to the Caribbean after being booted from the T20 World Cup.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC NewsNight, starting now.
Hello, I'm Shane Seeley. Thanks for joining us for this edition of NewsNight. Prime Minister Mia Amor-Motley believes this country's manufacturing sector is making great strides and continuing to show a knack for innovation, growth and export. She made the comment after touring the exhibits at the Barbados Manufacturers Association Trade and Innovation Summit ongoing at the Lloyd Erskine Sandiford Centre. The summit replaces the usual BMX. Ryan Broom was there and filed this report.
Prime Minister Motley toured the exhibits and engaged the business people, after which she highlighted the resilience of the island's manufacturing sector as a key factor in its continued success. She also commended the Barbados Manufacturers Association for the developmental role it continues to play, as well as its focus on trade and innovation with the summit.
As we all know, COVID has been that disruptor for all of us. Ironically, in the early part of COVID, one of the things that continued to do well when tourism wasn't doing well was in fact manufacturing. And I think that in the early days, the disinfectants, a number of the other products were found markets that they had not had before. I want to also thank Export Barbados, BIBC, and the Minister. As we move around, they're working with a number of persons. I think BMA has insisted that their theme this year is innovation. And you can certainly see that there are a number of interesting concepts here that in some instances Export Barbados is already working with.
Prime Minister Motley also reflected on some of the exhibits she saw and encouraged Barbadians to come out and support the summit when it continues this weekend.
I saw the very interesting stuff with respect to the batteries, and you saw the young man there, and the scale. We also saw the excellent work and the process of getting additional certification with the red diamond fertilizer, which is particularly appropriate at this stage for us to investigate because of the quadrupling of the global prices of fertilizer. And therefore, we are going to continue to work and encourage innovation as much as possible. The excellent work with the robots and the coding, you saw that, and the youngsters, and I think the only reason we didn't see the teachers here today is because it's Teachers Professional Day. So, and of course then you have the traditional stuff that we've been showing. The breadfruit wine was very good. And it really was very good, chilled. So I think that Barbadians will have a wonderful time this weekend.
The Prime Minister adds it may be necessary in some cases to create clusters with some companies to create a greater impact for export.
I'm so happy to see that some of these homemade wines are now in the supermarkets and things like that, and a number of the people doing the other artisanal stuff in terms of soaps and creams, etc. We want to be able to help people improve their branding and their marketing, and in some instances you will find that we're going to have to be able to do clusters but with a single marketing brand. It makes no sense everybody pulling in different directions, when in truth and in fact what we need to be able to do is to build brand awareness. So there's some products that are here that we can work with, and there are others that Mark and Davidson are now working on to build out.
Now, earlier in the day, President of Barbados, Dame Sandra Mason, also toured the exhibits and interacted with the exhibitors. The BMA's Trade and Innovation Summit continues on Saturday and Sunday this weekend. Ryan Broom, CBC News.
Meanwhile, the Minister of Industry, Innovation, Science and Technology, Davidson Ishmael, says a new policy is being drafted to guide the development of Barbados' industrial sector. He says it will replace the now defunct industrial policy for Barbados. His remarks came during the BMA's inaugural Trade and Innovation Summit award ceremony and dinner.
The assignment requires the undertaking of a comprehensive review of Barbados' industrial sector and the identification of the factors and constraints which bear upon and can explain its recent performance. The scope of work also called for an assessment of the design, impact, and efficacy of the current policies, strategies, and frameworks for the sector. And it required an appraisal of their relevance in the context of the changing industrial dynamics at home and abroad. It is envisioned that an effective industrial policy would provide an enabling environment that would support the private sector in effectively performing their role as the engine of growth in a dynamic and competitive economy.
The industry minister expects the introduction of the Export Credit Agency will ensure financing is no longer a barrier to businesses seeking to expand into regional and international markets.
The introduction of the Export Credit Agency, or the Export Bank of Barbados, will allow for businesses to access financing for purchase orders. This will be done through the provision of monetary support that these businesses will need to be able to fulfill large external orders readily and on time. There must be a synergistic relationship between MIST, my ministry, in the execution of strategy and development of policy, the BMA, with its focus on undertaking developmental work to assist local manufacturers, and the BIDC Export Barbados.
In other news on Newsnight, the way is being cleared for a more efficient public transport system, which will include cashless transactions, among other things. It comes with the signing of a memorandum of understanding between the major stakeholders in the transport sector, or Shane Jones has the details.
Deputy Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Transport Works and Water Resources, John Skinner, describes the compact signing as the first time in the Caribbean a government has been able to get all the players in the transport sector to come together to work towards a partnership for the betterment of commuters and stakeholders. Signing the MOU were the Transport Authority, the Transport Board, the Association of Public Transport Operators, the Alliance Owners of Public Transport, the BHTA, TAP Operators, the Ministry of Transport Works and Water Resources, Bridgetown Port Taxi Cooperative Society, the Independent Taxi Union, and the Barbados Transport Cooperative Society.
I must commend you for your efforts and your willingness to partner with the government of Barbados to push a sector that has for some time been challenged in various ways. And I trust that as we sign off on this agreement today, that this will signal your intention, and obviously that of the government of Barbados, to foster a sector that can indeed have benefits for this economy.
Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Transport Works and Water Resources, Santia Bradshaw, says the MOU identifies how a number of pressing issues within the industry can be addressed collaboratively to chart a way forward for public transportation. She says mass transit needs urgent attention.
We recognize that we have to rationalize our routes, we have to make public transport more efficient, and if it is to be effective, then we need to ensure that we have not only the cashless system, which allows commuters to feel more comfortable traveling and using our buses, but we have to look at things like the way in which we communicate and cooperate with our stakeholders as well. For the most part, I would say the sector is already, to a large extent, privatized, and therefore we are dealing with entities who have their own way of doing things. But in order to be able to make the system more efficient, there's going to have to be that structure from government.
Ms. Bradshaw says the long-standing challenges of reckless behavior of some of the PSV drivers on the island's roadways is being addressed.
We are certainly closer in terms of fine-tuning the regulations. Those regulations just recently, the Director of Transport Authority, Transport Board and myself with MTW would have met to review a lot of the input that had been made by the stakeholders, and that is currently before the CPC for drafting. So those regulations will certainly be available shortly as well.
The Deputy Prime Minister has also revealed that the proposed new taxi rate has been favorably considered by Cabinet, and an announcement of a standardized taxi rate will come shortly. Shane Jones, CBC News.
Police are tonight probing the discovery of a body at Charnox in Christchurch. Confirmation of this from Police Communications and Public Affairs Officer Acting Inspector Rodney Innes. He says the body of a 33-year-old of Silver Hill, Christchurch, was discovered motionless at about 8 minutes to 11 this morning at Factory Road in Charnox. He says the official identification was done by a family member who visited the scene. Police Inspector Stewart revealed the identity.
We have identified the body to be Matthew Bain and from Silver Hill, Christchurch. We carry out investigations on this matter. At this time is very, very sensitive. Don't mind the body has been identified in relation to this investigation.
And in a separate incident, police are reporting the unnatural death of another man whose body was discovered at Welch's in Christchurch around 20 minutes after 3 this afternoon.
What I can say is that the body appeared to have some wounds that needs to be certified. That's what we're doing now. And we're asking anyone who might have any kind of information pertaining to this particular matter in these circumstances that they can, in fact, contact the Oisins police station.
Also for the one at Charnox.
For either of the two unnatural deaths, we are in the middle of investigations, sensitive investigations, and we can do it with the help of the general public as usual.
The deceased was later identified as 28-year-old Divitus Roosevelt Sylvester Jr. Chase of Caneville New Road in Christchurch. We'll have more details as they become available. Well, Barbadians will have to wait several weeks to hear whether the Barbados Light and Power Company Limited has been successful in its bid to raise electricity rates. In a statement, the CEO of the Fair Trading Commission, Dr. Marcia Atherley Ikichi, says with the hearing completed, the Commission now awaits the closing statements from the interveners. And they are to be submitted by Friday, October the 28th this year. She adds, once the information has been submitted, the electricity panel, with the assistance of staff, will begin the process of reviewing all the arguments and evidence presented to the proceeding, and that happened during the proceeding. It is expected to take approximately 6 to 8 weeks for the FTC to assess all the evidence presented and render its decision. The rate hearing concluded on Friday, October 14th, after 15 days of arguments by 7 interveners and the applicant. Well, coming up after the break, the Ministry of Health continues to monitor the flu situation here. We'll have the details to that story ahead with others on Newsnight. Over the last 4 months, Barbados has recorded an increase in the number of influenza cases, with a spike coming in this month of October. Chief Medical Officer Dr. The Most Honorable Kenneth George says the Ministry of Health is monitoring the development.
We had a total of 86 cases. About 70% of those cases occurred in the month of October. Influenza is spread similar to COVID, either via respiratory droplets or close contact to persons, and therefore persons should be aware of how to protect themselves. As many of you know, mask mandates are no longer in force, and mask wearing in Barbados is indeed optional. But there are some groups that need to protect themselves a bit more than others. So those include the elderly and persons with non-communicable disease.
Dr. George says the Ministry of Health offers flu vaccines for particular groups.
We vaccinate individuals who are healthcare workers across the whole sector. We also purchase vaccines for the elderly, for persons in geriatric and nursing homes, and persons in the joint services. So just let the public know that we quietly do some vaccinations against the flu. I have had, I think, about 5-6 shots every year for the last 3-4 years. I've had several. Every year I get my flu shot. And for those individuals who require a flu shot but don't fall into these categories, they can visit their private practitioner.
Barbados has secured major funding from the Green Climate Fund for a tertiary upgrade of the Bridgetown sewage treatment plant, among other things. The Executive Director of 5Cs, the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center, Dr. Colin Young, says some of the $50 million in funding will assist the water-scarce country with much-needed projects. Dr. Young says while the monies have been approved, there are still some details to be worked out before Barbados can begin to draw down on the funds.
The 5Cs will be signing what is called a funding activity agreement that governs the implementation of this three-hour cruise project. And once that is done and we meet the conditions for the first disbursement, we are hopeful that we will see the first funds delivered by the end of this year, which is actually quite remarkable in terms of the pace.
Dr. Young explains the importance of funding such as this for a climate-vulnerable island like Barbados.
This particular program, as you rightly said, is a $50 million program, of which $40 million is in grants, is going to contribute significantly to building the resilience of the water sector in the entire country of Barbados. And because it's $40 million in grants, it allows the country that already has a very difficult fiscal space to be able to undertake critical work that is needed to build that resilience.
Government hopes to get legislation for the disabled to Parliament by early 2023. This was revealed at the media launch for the Deaf Calypso Project concert and exhibition, which will be held on November 9th at Frank Collimore Hall. Speaking at the Council for the Disabled, the Minister of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs, Kirk Humphrey, said he believes much more can be done for the disabled.
The ministry, we would have set up an advisory committee for improving the lives of persons with disabilities. And that was not just a talk shop. We've just received the initial version of the report, and we're making the reviews to that. We also have in our hand the draft legislation for improving the lives of persons with disabilities, and I know that the advisory committee is reviewing it as well. I'm hopeful that we will have that legislation before the Parliament by early next year.
Now, President for the Council of the Disabled, Carrie-Ann Eiffel, told the audience the project was long in the making but was delayed by the COVID situation. According to her, several local charities and partners in Britain are involved.
There is a community that lives among us, a silent community, a community that's often overlooked, a community whose needs are not articulated loudly, because they are deaf, because their language is not the common language of all Barbadians. But yet they have a story to tell. They have lives to share. And through Deaf Calypso, a calypso which is a medium of all Barbadians, they say that West Indians are born with a rhythm in their soul.
The Ministry of Education, Technological and Vocational Training has pledged its continued commitment to ensure there are opportunities for continuous professional development of teachers while contributing to their total well-being. Chief Education Officer Dr. Ramona Archer-Bradshaw has made the comment as the island marks Teachers Professional Day today. She says the ministry's commitment is reflected in the theme for Education Month, promoting quality education through healthy minds and bodies. Ms. Archer-Bradshaw says Barbados has a cadre of well-equipped educators. Teachers were saluted and told their labor has not gone unnoticed.
For this reason, the Ministry of Education, Technological and Vocational Training has been regularly consulting with the various unions so that your voices can be heard and so that the decisions made are in the best interest of making schools more effective, efficient, and ultimately more pleasant environments in which to operate. When, for example, we navigated the uncharted waters of the COVID-19 pandemic, our consultations reached a peak, and now, as we navigate the latest challenge to affect our education system, the consultations continue.
Dr. Archer-Bradshaw has reminded teachers of the drive by the Ministry of Education to promote agriculture, good nutrition, and physical education in all schools.
Our children need to understand the relationships that exist among agriculture, food security, eating healthily, being physically active, and their wellness. As you teach your various subjects, I encourage you to teach your students the importance of being rooted, having values, having healthy minds, and having healthy bodies. After all, we must place focus on teaching the child and not just the subject.
Tonight's business report is brought to you by the City of Bridgetown Cooperative Credit Union Limited, measuring success one member at a time.
Time for business now, and we're hearing tonight that the long-awaited number portability will soon be implemented here in Barbados. This feature will allow people to keep their telephone numbers when they switch phone providers. The announcement has come from the Minister of Industry, Innovation, Science and Technology, Davidson Ishmael.
Most Barbadians had their numbers for years and have shared them with their friends and family both in Barbados and overseas. So having to give out one's telephone number or numbers would mean that many people would find it harder to keep in touch. As Minister of Industry, Innovation, Science and Technology, I am proud to announce that local number portability will be launched later this year, and with that, you will then be able to change phone providers and keep your number. Your new provider will help you set up a new account that uses the same number that you currently possess. This works for both your landline and for your cell phone, and in most cases, it is completely free. The only cost you might have to pay is a small fee to get your handset unlocked to work on the new network.
Local small and medium enterprises now have a better opportunity to participate in the decision-making process for the business sector. It comes with the launch of the Barbados Trust Fund Limited's Manufest initiative. It was launched at the Pelican Village. Trevor Thorpe reports.
There is a view the Manufest initiative can help change the course of small and medium-sized businesses in Barbados. Mr. Simmons says the Barbados Trust Fund Limited must be complimented for the bold step they have taken to develop the project.
It is about embracing those people who, if I'm to be candid with you, were previously neglected. It is about encouraging those people, if I can be equally candid, who were previously disregarded. And it is about empowering and educating those people who were previously disrespected.
Business development consultant Nicole Ford says the Manufest initiative is a developmental journey aimed at building client confidence.
This new program will place emphasis on building client competencies in several areas. These will include costing and pricing of products and services. The right pricing approach is essential to remain competitive. Great value deserves a fair price for products and services offered and secures the profits entrepreneurs need to invest in change and growth. We'll enhance the capabilities in selling and distribution. As we know, distribution can make or break a company.
The 8-week Manufest initiative will run from October 22nd until December 10th. Trevor Thorpe, CBC News.
Well, Damien's back with the second round of sports and another defeat, but this time for the Barbados netball girls. What's going on there?
Yeah, it's all happening in the last 2 days, Shane. Barbados' ticket to the Netball World Cup in South Africa next year is still within reach, despite suffering a heavy defeat to Trinidad and Tobago last night at the National Indoor Center in Kingston, Jamaica. In a top-of-the-table clash between the unbeaten teams in the America's Netball Qualifier, the Gems went down 40-50 after trailing 21-20 at halftime. Top-of-the-table clash, Barbados in blue and gold taking on Trinidad and Tobago. Barbados Gems starting in the circle with Shonika Wharton at goal shooter and Latonya Blackman at goal attack. And that raised a few eyebrows considering Faye Agard has been the Bajans' best shooter. Wharton with an opportunity to put the Gems on the board first, but it's a long way out, misses the first. Unfortunate to have a second bite at the cherry, still nothing. Well, TNT used that blemish and started on the front foot, opening their compliments goal shooter Afisha Noel. After goal attack, Julisha Cooper established a solid base in front of Akina Stout at goal defense. Well, it took Barbados 4 minutes into the match to get on the board. Contact called on goal defense to Amelia McCarthy. Surprisingly, Blackman opts to pass Wharton on the money. Well, this quarter really set the tone for the first half, with Barbados having to fight for every inch to get close to the goal. Again, Blackman feeding Wharton, and we're tied at 3-all. But the first quarter belonged to the Calypso girls. While Wharton started slowly, converting 5 from 8 attempts at the opposite end. 6'5" Noel was bossing the circle and providing Cooper with easy chances, closing out the first quarter up 12-7. The Gems had 7 turnovers in the opening quarter and would need to clean up their act to keep tabs on TNT. It seemed to be a tough ask, considering McCarthy and goalkeeper Shaquana Green were not allowing Barbados easy looks. Contact called, and the ball is headed the other way. Under 3 minutes to go in the first half. Barbados still down by 5, needing to up their offense. Obstruction call slows the play down, and even with a clear-cut chance, TNT almost come away with it. Lucky call, and Wharton would handle the business. But as they say, when the going gets tough, the tough get going, and TNT too aggressive. Contact call, giving Barbados the easy route to the circle. Blackman to Wharton, lead cut to 3. Then with under 10 seconds to go, the 2-4-6 can breathe a little easier. Wharton collecting the lob pass. Blackman is there. The Gems within striking distance. And the perfect way to end a tough first half. Center Tonisha Rockyaw with a long, hopeful ball. Contact call on McCarthy. The Gems say thank you so much. Wharton eventually converting 22-21 in favor of Trinidad and Tobago, but it's game on. Coming out of the break, Barbados made a firm statement by starting the third with a goal. Could this be the moment in the match where the momentum changes? Wharton up and in, 22-all. But a resolute defensive effort and more killer instinct in the circle was required. Wharton with a golden chance to keep it extremely tight. That should have been scored. Unfortunately, things went downhill from there. The lead blossomed from 4 in quick time. Noel with the size advantage. TNT on the move. Couple plays later, Chantel Seamungle at wing attack, flying high, and Noel adding the flair with the NBA-style layup. 30-23 at this stage. Barbados replaced Wharton with Faye Agard at the goal shooter position, and that change proved fruitful, cutting the advantage. The Calypso girls ended the third, still ahead though, 36-30. Now in the fourth, Blackman into the grasp of Agard, sinks it. But as much as the crowd enjoyed the rivalry, there could only be one winner. And as time evaporated, TNT ran away with this one, coming away with the 50-40 victory. They're headed to the Netball World Cup next year, full of confidence. Barbados having to wait to book their ticket in the final fixture against Antigua and Barbuda.
Well, that's our time for this edition of CBC NewsNight. On behalf of the production team, I'm Shane Seeley. Good night.
Thanks for visiting us. To get more stories like this one, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.